Oh, I know this one's going to fall on deaf ears, but hey, a man can dream, can't he? Today, I want to share with you some thoughts and insight, which will hopefully give the ladies out there a better understanding of how men think and why so many of them are choosing to walk away. Walk away from dating, relationships, marriage, and women in general. And who knows, maybe, just maybe, one or two of the ladies will actually listen. So, ladies, understand that what I'm about to say is actually how men think and feel. And while you're probably not going to like it, if you were to take the time to listen to it with an open mind, you might learn something about men from men, instead of, as most of you do, learning about men from other women. Other women who, more often than not, get it completely wrong. Now, let me start and say that this is with all due respect and with the goal of trying to help you all out, but you gotta stop kidding yourselves about relationships. For example, the other day I saw a video where a woman said, "If he's not obsessed with me, I don't want him." And I thought, you want a boyfriend or a stalker? And I want to be real for a second. I think it's safe to say most people would agree that relationships today have gone completely off the rails. And it's largely because of how absurd the expectations of today's women have become, to the point they want men to be obsessed with them. It's so absurd that men are literally laughing at them and saying, "Okay, darlings," as they turn around and walk away. And it's only getting worse as more and more women run around telling each other to have these absurd expectations, or as they like to call them, higher standards. It speaks to their mindset towards men, especially with regard to what women think relationships should be with men. So let me try and help the ladies out here. Although, let's be honest, as I said earlier, most of them are just going to disregard it. Disregard it as me mansplaining, because that's how they usually dismiss things that men say that they don't like. Well, darlings, you can call it mansplaining all you want, but for me, it's calling out the fairy tales and delusions y'all live by, choose to live by, instead of having real love, real growth, and real relationships. In fact, there's a good starting point. Let's actually talk about what a real relationship actually is. Now, we've all seen those couples goals posts. You know, the ones posted all over Insta of the perfect vacations, the matching outfits and pajamas, the overly filtered photo with the caption, "My forever." But let's get one thing straight. That ain't reality. Not by a long shot. No, what it is a highlight reel with some good lighting and a caption borrowed from Pinterest. Real relationships? Sorry, but they're messy. They're anything but perfect, and they take work. A lot of work. They involve compromise, disagreements, unwashed dishes, and awkward conversations. They involve two people working together to make things last. Two people who accept that there's going to be good times, bad times, and everything in between. And here's the thing. Today's women refuse to accept that reality. Refuse to accept that it might not be perfect 24/7, 365, till death do you part. Far too many of them think it's always going to be like what they see in those Disney or Hallmark movies. And sadly, most of them spend their days comparing their relationship to someone else's Instagram grid, never realizing for a second that all they're seeing is the highlights and none of the low ones. They can't fathom that in reality that grid doesn't show the passive-aggressive texts or the silent treatments, doesn't show the issues that inevitably arise or the lack of intimacy, doesn't show the 3-hour-long fight last night over why he put the fork in the dishwasher one way when she wants it in there the other. Oh, they see it in their own relationship to be sure, but quite literally believe that it doesn't happen in any of those other relationships, the ones they're comparing theirs to, which gives them a false sense of reality. It leads to them wanting and expecting love, wanting that perfect marriage or relationship, and thinking that they should have it without having to put in any effort at all. That's like expecting six-pack abs without doing a single bit of exercise and eating 5 bags of Doritos washed down by a gallon of wine for dinner every night. And when that ideal marriage doesn't happen, what do women do? Well, they run right down and file for divorce because they know, just know, the grass is going to be greener if they do. And if they don't know, you can be sure their divorced friends who are sitting home snarfing down Haagen-Dazs and boxed wine like crack addicts will make sure to tell them that's how it's going to be over and over again till they believe it. Because as we all know, misery loves company. And it's exactly why it's women who are the ones initiating divorce 80 to 90% of the time. Not because the marriage is bad, but because it isn't perfect. Let's throw some numbers at this little fantasy, shall we? Roughly 55% of marriages in the U.S. end in divorce. That means for every picture-perfect couple posting about their 3-month anniversary, there's another one out there fighting over who gets custody of the air fryer. And part of that fighting is done by spending tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars on lawyers' fees. Let's face it, divorce is the biggest wealth transfer scam that has ever existed, to the tune of billions upon billions of dollars every single year. The money goes from the family right into the lawyers' pockets, and those lawyers are laughing all the way to the bank. And it's why they love to represent women and encourage them to file for divorces, because they know women will think with emotion, not rationality. If they can get her all fired up, these lawyers know they're going to make a mint, or at least enough for a new boat to dock by their vacation cottage. But that's not all of it. The fact remains that even people with the best intentions, the Pinterest-worthy weddings and the fairy tale proposals, still fall apart. Something women rarely, if ever, think about before the wedding. But afterward, well, I'd argue as soon as they get that piece of paper, that's all women today think about. The minute the honeymoon's over, they're thinking this one's done and dusted, so let's start preparing for the next one, and the one after that, and the one after that. All while calculating just how much money they can get from each one of them. And why is that? Because that's how they've been taught to be. That's how they've been taught to expect it to be. Anything less than perfect is no good. That's what they've been told since birth by their mothers, their grandmothers, feminism, and society as a whole. And it's why they rush and bail out so quickly. They thought not only wouldn't they have to put in the work, but that there wouldn't be any work to put in the first place. Sorry, ladies, but fairy tales don't come with student loan debt, in-laws, or navigating trust issues. If you want a healthy relationship, you need to be ready for all of those and more. Next up, tradition. All right, let's talk about reality. Let's talk about the pressure cooker we call life timelines. There's this script that society hands to men. Graduate, get a job, get married, buy a house, have kids. Your entire worth as a man is defined not by who you are, not by the type of person you are, but how much money you make, how much you provide. And the person who's judging your worth based on that more than anyone else is your wife, girlfriend, and the mother of your children. Oh, sure, she may cut you a little slack at first, but if you haven't done all that and more by 30, she's going to suddenly label you as non-committal or lost. And even if you have, it doesn't stop there. Oh no, it's what have you done for me lately? The minute you come close to achieving whatever it is she wants, she's going to move those goalposts faster than shit through a goose. And then she's going to keep doing it over and over and over again. Nothing men do is ever going to be enough for women because, again, they've been taught to think that way, taught to challenge men constantly, never letting up on them. And then there's the other side of tradition that women feel, like the belief that if you don't find the one by a certain age, you're doomed to live with cats and scented candles forever. It's a cliche, a stereotype, to be sure, but it also happens to be true. And here's a wild idea. maybe, just maybe, it's okay to take your time. Maybe figuring yourself out before forcing a relationship is actually a healthy thing to do. And if he doesn't propose by 30, it doesn't mean that he's emotionally unavailable. Maybe he's just emotionally aware enough to not rush into something he's not ready for. All right, ladies, this next one's going to shock you, I know, but here's the thing. Here's the thing you damn well better accept. Men, and younger men in particular, have realized they don't have to be someone else's idea of a perfect partner to be valuable, which is why they're choosing to focus on their goals, whether it's building a business, traveling, or healing their own emotional wounds. That doesn't mean they don't want love. In fact, they actually want it as much as ever. But they're no longer willing to accept the drama, your never-ending, soul-sucking, it's all about me drama. Ladies, if your man dips every time you pick a fight over nothing, he's not avoiding intimacy, he's avoiding your nonsense, your insanity, your delusions. And honestly, who the hell can blame him? We need to shift the conversation. Y'all need to realize it's not just about you, but him too. Maybe instead of constantly talking about what you're demanding from him, you start talking about what you're going to bring to his life. Because while most of you think you're bringing Berkey or Prada just by being there, the fact is what you're really bringing is dollar store bargain bin merch that nobody wants. It's time y'all start talking about building together, not just what he brings to the table. Relationships aren't job interviews. They're partnerships. And that means you can either step up or step out. Because while y'all expect men to give you more than the bare minimum, rare is the woman who even gives that. All right, let's get even more real. Not everyone wants the 2.5 kids and white picket fence. And that's okay. There certainly is more than one way to connect. Just make sure you're not defining connection by how you've decided it should be. Stop using his wants, his needs, his desires against him, labeling them as controlling or misogynistic as your means of escape for doing the emotional work that you need to put in. As the saying goes, it takes two to tango. And if you aren't willing to consider that he may have different wants, different needs, and different desires than you, then you aren't looking for a husband, you're looking for a servant. Love comes in many forms, but it only thrives in one condition: honesty and a willingness to admit that both parties not only deserve to have their wants and desires addressed by their partner, but need them. If there's one place men believe women have dropped the ball more than any other, it's when it comes to their needs, their wants, and their desires. Not only have today's women decided not to do anything to fulfill them, that it's being oppressed if they're even asked to, now they've gotten to the point where they're openly stating that men aren't even allowed to have them. Next, another way women have lost the plot is in terms of meaningful connection and matching vibes, whatever the hell those are. The fact is, most of today's women are completely obsessed with finding someone who perfectly matches their vibe. They want it to be forever, like they see in the Hallmark movies and those romance novels that they read, where the thrill, that first feelings that they had, lasts forever. Well, darlings, I hate to break it to you, but that thrill disappears. The vibes are going to fade. That chemistry will fizzle. That's all a given. But that doesn't mean the relationship is no good. It just means it's changed, as relationships will inevitably do, as people will inevitably do. Nothing is forever. People change, and that's not a bad thing, but a good one. Ultimately, what we're talking about is character. It's not about liking the same Netflix shows or vibing at brunch. It's about having shared values, mutual respect, and emotional accountability. You want someone who shows up every day, not someone who just texts, "What you doing?" at 2 a.m. And that's what women refuse to give, refuse to accept. They want that perfect man who won't just sweep them off their feet on day one, but day 10,001. And that simply doesn't happen. There is no perfect man. There is no perfect relationship, any more than there's a perfect woman. And no, ladies, I know you don't believe this, but none of you are perfect, though most of you think you are. Being with someone who pushes you to be better, who challenges you, but who respects your growth, that's sexy. But only if you allow them to grow in the way they want to grow, not in the way you've decided they must grow. Sorry, ladies, but you may think you have the right to change him for the better. In reality, the one who's changing is you. You are the one changing into a controlling monster. If you can't accept him for who he is and who he wants to be, the problem isn't him, it's you. Relationships aren't just about having fun. They should be focused on building something that lasts. And that takes maturity. And yes, it takes work. A lot of work. Something today's women have shown they aren't willing to do. And finally, let's talk about you, ladies. Your wants, your desires, your dreams. Look, you have every right to have them, but they should be yours, not what all the other girlies are telling you they should be. Here's your permission slip to stop living for someone else's expectations, that perfect Instagram life. Here's your permission to stop trying to be the top bitch and instead be yourself. You don't need to follow the new traditional script. You don't need to be whatever feminists have told you you need to be. You don't need to hit milestones on society's timeline. What you do need to be is honest with yourself about what you want and who you are. That applies not just to careers, but in everything throughout life. And there is nowhere that is more true than within relationships. There is no prize for being the first to get married if you're also the first to get divorced. So instead of trying to please the crowd, make all the other girlies happy, why not please yourselves instead? Ask yourself, what do you want your love story to look like? Not what TikTok says it's supposed to look like. Not what your aunt is pressuring you into every holiday. Build a relationship that works for you and him. Trust me, if you do, you're going to be a hell of a lot happier. Look, ladies, this isn't about me dunking on you. It's about helping you to wake up, trying to improve your lives. It's about realizing that love isn't perfect and was never meant to be. Sorry, ladies, but you don't need someone who's obsessed with you. In fact, that's downright creepy. What you need is someone who respects you, grows with you, and chooses you every day, even when you're not Instagram ready. And guess what? That's exactly what men need and, more importantly, want. Sorry, ladies, but your looks are gonna fade. Your career doesn't matter in the least. The fact you own a house or pay your bills is irrelevant. What matters is, are you willing to be a partner, an equal partner, or are you looking to be what most of today's modern women are? A parasite. A parasite who sucks the life out of men, offering nothing in return. Because at the end of the day, life isn't about finding someone perfect. It's about finding someone who fits your chaos and still wants to stay.